Well, I'll tell you just a little bit about my background and where I came from. Ivan said that I spent 16 years with MBNA. The story within the story is that during my 16 years there, 12 of the 16 was managing and running call centers. So somebody might ask me, how in the hell did you get into the outplacement business? What landed you here? Late in my career, 12 years in, I was managing 3 call centers up in MBNA's New England region. We had about 800 people, and our sites typically outperformed the others in the company, and we had the lowest turnover. Well, someone got the bright idea that since we were so good at retaining people and getting them to perform, that I would be a great director of recruitment. So I ended up back here in Wilmington as the head of recruitment at MBNA. I did that for about a year. The focus was to re-engage the customer because they weren't real engaged with HR. And then was asked to start a new area up called Human Resources Strategies. And in that particular role, my kind of mantle, my mission was to work with the division presidents to look at headcount across the corporation and to find efficiencies. So I did that for 3 years. I set up a very bureaucratic headcount approval process. There was an act of God required to get a hire in the company. And I did that for 3 years and started feeling like my cheese had been moved. And then the company offered a very lucrative voluntary severance program, and I got to leave and have a couple years to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I too made a couple of career transitions. I transitioned from MBNA. I bought a boat, I grew a goatee, I got really tan. I had a nice summer. I built a fence at my house out in Landenberg. And then I went to work at Citizens Bank as their head of recruitment for the Mid-Atlantic and Mid-States region. Rode the train here out of Wilmington to Philly every day. And after about 9 months of that, I thought I was going to put a bullet in my head. And decided that it was time to do something new. And a friend came calling and said, hey, we have a growing entrepreneurial education company, computertraining.com. They're looking for a chief administrative officer, and I ended up there in my real first kind of entrepreneurial experience out of the big Fortune 500 companies. And I learned a lot about surviving in a small business. And $50 million doesn't sound very small, but when you come from MBNA, it's small. I mean, it felt small. Steve knows, he was there with me. And we accomplished quite a bit. But I knew things were going bad as the economy got worse and student loan approval rates started crashing. The company really couldn't get funding for its students, and I kind of identified that inflection point and said, I got to get the hell out of here. And in April '09, I left and I started Barton Career Advisors. Through all those transitions that I took, I was telling a couple of the gentlemen here this evening that I got the opportunity to go through a couple of outplacement programs. And they didn't make me feel real good, let's just say that. I was going through all the emotions that everyone goes through. I mean, I voluntarily decided to leave MBNA, and I have to tell you, I thought I was really hot shit. I had just gotten my MBA. I worked for the most prolific credit card company in the universe. I thought I was imminently hireable immediately, and I did pretty well out of that transition, but what I found out was that I wasn't real in touch with what was making me happy. And as I went through the outplacement process, I also learned that they weren't real in touch with how to help me get in touch with what would make me happy and fulfilled and prosperous. The style of outplacement really bothered me. And the reason it bothered me is because I knew there was economic value being lost in that whole transaction, that it was going away somewhere, that a company like MBNA was paying $14,000, $15,000 for me to have those services, and I stopped using them because they sucked pretty much. And I'm using this kind of colorful vernacular because that's really how I felt at the time. And I just kind of made some notes, and I said, one day I'm going to change this business. That's the thought that I had. And so, I had another experience when I left Citizens. I negotiated to get a severance package and to pick my own outplacement provider, because they used Right Management, and I said, I'm not going to use Right again. I know enough about them. but I already still had this thought, I'm going to change this industry. So I got the opportunity to use a Wilmington provider called Career Concepts, and they're nice people there. And I know the CEO, and I know their VP of Client Services, and couldn't say anything bad about them, but I learned from that experience as well. And when I started the company, the one thing I felt was missing is relationships. And you know, our business is kind of focused in 3 areas. The traditional outplacement company only goes after businesses. So in other words, they kind of run around and they chase the ambulances and they kind of pick up the dead bodies, and that's how they make their money. And I kind of thought to myself when I started Barton Career Advisors, I want nothing to do with this outplacement thing. I'm not going to be an outplacement company. I'm going to be a career coaching company, damn it. And so I said I'm going to work with B2C folks, people that really need the help, but that are going to be engaged. If they pay me, they're going to be focused on what I'm saying because they've chosen to pay. And what I found pretty quickly is that these feelings that I had about outplacement translated to the business world. I kept getting asked questions by all my friends, well, are you doing outplacement? And I said, well, no, I'm career coaching, And after I got asked that question about 10 times, one of my friends, who's now my entrepreneurial coach, said to me, you're going to be doing outplacement because the market wants what you're selling, and if you don't start listening, you're going to end up with a passion business that ends you up in bankruptcy court. Best piece of advice I ever got. So just to finish off my introduction about the business, I was telling someone tonight, it was Cheryl, I believe, that my first month we made $336. And last month we made over $30,000.
Wow.
So, you know, that's the evolution. It took, 20 months to get here, but we're excited about what's happening, and we know it's going to grow. So that's the business. That's where we are.
Okay, so that's a pretty good jump from